Good morning, everyone. Last Sunday was the first Sunday in Advent, and we lit a candle. And in my reflections last week, I suggested that the name Kersfeest means literally the Festival of Candles. Now, I had checked that piece of information with a couple of Afrikaans speakers. Now, in this church, you cannot just make that kind of statement without some sort of feedback. Sure enough, I got the email. Kersfeest has got nothing to do with candles, all right? And so if you also knew that, and it is a derivative of Christos, which is Christ, and it's come down through from the Latin down through until it takes on in Afrikaans this word Kersfeest. So it's got nothing to do with candles. Although you did get that WhatsApp on Friday, didn't you? About Eskom putting the Kers back into Kersfeest. Yeah.
Candles or torches in case there is.
Yeah, you need to bring on Wednesday. Yes. Okay, there we are. So be that as it may. Our task is to light candles. And one of the stories I'm going to be telling this afternoon across at the waterfront is a story that I've told you often. The Grey family has its origins in Scotland, so there's quite a strong Scottish theme around there this afternoon. And I will be telling the story of Harry Lauder, who was a great Scottish entertainer of a previous generation. And he was once asked for his understanding of a Christian. And he said this: when I was a little boy growing up in a village in Scotland, every evening a lamplighter would come down the road. Now, in those days, they didn't go to the local power generator and flick a switch and everything would come on. There would be a man who would come down the road with a gas, and he would light these darkened lights one by one. He says, I remember myself as a little boy with my nose pressed against the window, watching this man come down the road. One by one, these lamps were lit, and away he would go down the street and disappear from sight. And then I would watch all the weary travelers, as he put it, coming down the street, walking safely in the light of the lamp that the lamplighter had lit. And he said, that's my understanding of what a Christian is and what a Christian does. Christian lights lamps. And Jesus said as much, let your light so shine before the world that they may see your good works, your life, and what? Pat you on the back? No. Give glory to your Father in heaven. That is our role, particularly in these dark days. And I don't mean the days of load shedding. I mean, it was another Grey just before the First World War, Sir Edward Grey, who was the British Foreign Secretary as the world moved inexorably towards war. And he said, just before the outbreak of the First World War, the lamps are going out all over Europe. And I think some of us have sensed that in this country. The lamps, no, I don't mean, but the lamps, so much has just been extinguished. And then we hear the very first word of God in the Bible, which was, "Let there be light." That's the very first word that God spoke into the darkness. And when Jesus comes into this world, and it's told to us by John in the prologue, in the beginning it was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, that passage. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overwhelmed it. Now hear that. And the light, however small, and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overwhelmed it. And it never will. It never will. So you and I are to be lights, and in turn we are to light lamps. Better to curse the darkness, said the old Quakers. Better to light a lamp, said the old Quakers, than to curse the darkness. So be careful what you say. Rather, in the season of light, light lamps. Speak out your faith and your hope and trust in the Lord Jesus Christ as the light of the world. The candle of joy, the candle of joy. Behold, I bring you glad tidings of great joy. The word of the angels to the shepherds, which shall be to you and all the people. For unto us, for a child is born in Bethlehem. And you will find the child wrapped in swaddling clothes and lying in a manger. Joy. Joy. Now think about that one. Is that something that we have? Joy. Sometimes I think to myself, James, you're such a joyless individual. Where is the joy in your faith? I do find joy, but maybe I don't have enough of it. Joy. When last did you experience great joy? Besides when Cheslin Colby went running down that right wing in Japan. Did you do something a little out of the ordinary when he scored? Did you perhaps stand up and cheer or something? I was with Francois Lowe at the back, and we really acted out a character sitting there, because we're very quiet observers of rugby when we watch together. And at that point, both of us acted out of character, and we stood up and we punched the air and we high-fived each other before his wife said, "Order, order." Not quite, Teresa, not quite. Now that was a great moment, but we're not talking about that moment. But just a sense of joy in God. A sense of enjoyment of God. Do you enjoy God? Now that's quite an unusual way of perhaps putting it. We think of the old Scots as doer people. Yeah. And you know what? Every Scot who went through Sunday school learned the catechism, the greater and the shorter catechism. And you know what the first question and answer of the shorter and the greater catechism is? What is the chief end of man? In other words, what's the chief purpose of humankind? And you know the answer? The chief end of man, as we were all taught, question 1, answer 1 of the shorter and greater catechism. The chief end of man is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. Now, where has that gone in our lives? The chief purpose of our lives is to glorify God and to enjoy him. There's nothing dour about that, let me tell you. Nothing dour about that. Do you enjoy God? You're being a Christian. Is it just so fundamental? It's so integral to who you are. As we said some weeks ago, is your faith just a sort of an extra room on the house that we go into from time to time? Or is it the cathedral that we enter? This is where I am. This is where I belong. This is who I am. That it is that just sheer enjoyment of God. Joy. Joy. You know that lovely verse given to us in the letter that Paul wrote to the Philippians? Rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say, rejoice. All right? Say that again. I think it's a verse you all know. Rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say, rejoice. And it's interesting, it is an instruction. And I think sometimes it's good that we are kind of instructed because, you know, we allow ourselves and our Christian faith to kind of slip, and we give way to very natural and understandable feelings of discouragement. However, it seems sometimes that we are blown around by our moods. We're like the grand old Duke of York with his 10,000 men. And when they were up, they were up. And when they were down. And when they were only halfway up, they were neither up. Gee, you are so smart. The grand old Duke of York, and that's how it goes with us. But Christmas anchors us. Our faith anchors us. My surname, as you know, is Gray. And the symbol of the Gray clan is an anchor. Similarly, the Clark family is an anchor, steadfast and sure. From Hebrews, the letter to the Hebrews, we have this hope, which is an anchor of the soul, steadfast and sure. The Gray motto is anchor, fast, anchor. In other words, the sea can sometimes be all over the place, but I tell you, the Greys are anchored. Not all of them are, but you know, we're supposed to be. We're anchored. We're anchored in a place. We're not blown around by every prevailing wind. We're anchored. We're anchored. And joy is something that emerges when we know we are anchored. Yes, there are things that happen. But you know, sometimes we have to be like the psalmist of old who realizes that he's a little bit up and down, and he says, why are you so downcast, my soul, and why so disquieted within me? Remember that psalm? Yeah. Why so hope thou in God? In other words, he knows that there's stuff, but he's rooted. He's anchored. He's anchored. And that brings a joy. A joy. You know, now I know these are things that you can't just go and tell, you know, cheer up, you know that line, you know, cheer up, cheer up. So I cheered up and, you know, hang on, cheer up, things could be worse. Remember that one? Hang on, yeah. Cheer up, things could be worse. So I cheered up and sure enough, they got worse. we allow ourselves, even as Christians, to slip. I remember, forget exactly where it was. It may have been in Zimbabwe. Nice to see the Mellons aunt here from Zim. May have been in Zimbabwe, one of those sort of off-road places, appalling roads, where you come to it and there's a signpost, choose your rut, because you're in it. Because you're in it for the next 20 kilometers. Choose your rut, because you're in it for the next 20 kilometers. All right? Maybe, no, it wasn't the road to Mana that Ant and I did a couple of years ago. But you know, sometimes we get into this rut. I mean, here we are with the end of 2019 year. And you know, we're on the threshold of 2020. Are you going to choose your rut for the next 365 days? Are we? Where is that sense of adventure in our lives? Just nothing ever to look forward to. Somebody said to me some years ago, James, I died at the age of 40 and I'm just postponed my funeral for 75. I died at 40 and I postponed my funeral till 75. Goodness me, what on earth has happened to us that we've forfeited and lost our joy in God? And I forget where I was this past week. It was at the prayer meeting on Wednesday morning. I said, God is right now. God is right now. He is right now, here. And the knowledge that God is right now, does it change anything? Oh, we believe these things. It's all in the Bible, and that's wonderful. But right now, even as you sit here in this church, God is here right now. Amen. Think about that. Lord, forgive us that we've forgotten about you. It's a little wonder that Jesus says, behold, I stand at the door and knock, you know. Like, you guys are busy, we're all busy having a grand time, and Jesus says, excuse me, can I come in? Can I? God is here right now. Think of your walk with the Lord as walking with somebody who is with you right now. Yeah, it is worth a hallelujah. I mean, even Danny has gone quiet. Danny, you come in at the wrong times and are quiet. You come in at... No, what am I trying to say? The joy of the Lord. Why should we be God? Why should we be joyful? I mean, what is this thing? What is this thing about enjoying God? The old mindset said, well, that's very modern, you know, this thing of enjoying God. No, that's the old Scots. Solid, anchored, solid people. Just enjoying God, because they knew, in terms of Christmas, God is with us. That's what Christmas is all about. God with us. You shall call him, his name, Emmanuel, God with us. What is Easter? God for us. God for us. Can you imagine that? Not only is God with us, but he is God for us. That's the significance of Easter. And you've got God in us. That's the meaning of Pentecost. So you've got God with us, God for us, God in us. I mean, is that not something to feel joyful about? On the grand scale of things, that's mind-boggling. And I have to slap my face from time and say, Gray, wake up, Butty. Do you know what you've lost in stuffing your head with so much knowledge? You've lost a sense of God now, God with you, God for you, and God in you. And I said, Lord, just do a whole lot better. God with us, God for us, God in us. The joy of the Lord is my strength. It's little wonder that the psalmist says, the joy of the Lord is my strength. Because he has such a deep understanding of God right now. I want you to take that home with you, friends. Really, really. We want to discover that reality. We've got to know God right now. That's my prayer for this afternoon. It's a big prayer. It is a huge prayer. That folk will not only be there to hear, and there are dozens of tributes coming up, but through it all, there will be a sense of God is in this place. God right now. And to know God, not just as somebody away out there, to know as Abraham knew God as a friend, to know God as David knew God as a shepherd. What wonderful, wonderful images are those. This is who God is, friends. This really is the God of the right now. This is who he is. And that's why joy kind of begins to emerge. So enjoy God, friends. Really do. Really, really, really